Alright folks, so do you remember that arcade place where I got the Crazy Taxi or the Jumbo Safari and a few other cabs from there? I'm heading back there now because essentially, well, I haven't talked to the owner in about, well, since the pandemic started, and he's had a few more cabs coming, but I just want to check that there is 2 cabs for a friend of mine that he's looking for, or at least one. If they're still there, and also I want to see if I can maybe pick up one of these sit-down cabs. I don't quite have the space for it to put them in, but they're cool projects to work on, and I might find a place eventually. I might shift a few more cabs, so I'm going over there to pick up a project, see what else I can grab, because I know he's got a ton of spare parts that he told me I could have the last time. I just didn't take them, and see what new project we can pick up. So let's go there.
Okay, what's going on?
I'm a ninja.
Yeah, that's not a ninja.
Yes, it is.
Okay, you're a ninja. Okay, why are you a ninja?
I'm following the way.
The way you're following you're following the
PCB way.
I can't.
I'm not doing this.
PCB Way offers manufacturing services along with part assembly. They also offer a number of fantastic services like CNC, metal sheet fabrication, 3D printing, and even injection molding, turning it into a one-stop shop for all your DIY projects. So go to PCB Way, upload your project files, and get an instant quote. And thank you to them for sponsoring this video. I'm keeping the money, Ali.
Okay, so I'm here. He still has the House of the Dead Time Crisis here. He's got the Point Blank, the Namco cab here. I think that's all that's here, the bottom. But he has as well this cocktail table. I remember he mentioned that a while back, so that's actually interesting. What's this here? Oh yeah, that's for the Point Blank, but it's got a seat here. Not sure what that's from. Okay, I'll have a look upstairs. Huh. Namco. So there might have been a Pac-Man at some point. Fast draw, slow draw, draw. I'm not sure what that cab was. The new stuff here, there's a Battle Gear double cab. That's the seat for Ridge Racer. That's the Manx T bike. Rest of the Ridge Racer. Thrill Drive. Le Mans, Sega. They've tidied a bit. Indeed. That's Konami Thrill Drive, yeah. Big double cab. What is that? Is that another TT Max? Yeah. There's these guys as well. There's 2 of these. Well, I can only see 2 bikes, but these are double cabs. They're absolutely huge, but they're system 2, and it's actually a fun game. And I don't think they can be split. We'd have to make an entire custom bottom for it. That's a shame. Because the bikes are cool, they actually move. I'll find the bike upstairs. Here it is. It's a cool yoke. It's like the sit-down Agon. Now, if I had more space, yes. It's missing everything. Man, it's always cool to visit this place. That's my 4th time there. and I seem to come back with stuff every time and find new stuff. I think what's happened is after the pandemic, you had a lot of stuff returning as well, and but I think he's shifted a few cabs. So those shooter cabs that my friend wanted, they were kind of yellow cabs, just weren't there anymore. He's actually sold them, which is interesting. I would never have thought there was any demand for these type of cabs, but there you go. I stand corrected. And myself, I was interested in the TT Manx, but they're just too big. I thought I could have just a single cab, but they're just double cabs, which is just there. It's going to be awkward to work on. I'd have to make a separate cabinet just for that, just so I can actually control the bike. Although I am very tempted to take on that project, because it's kind of cool, and I think it would work. I would just have to make a much bigger base, because that one would be too narrow. I don't know. I think about it. But what I ended up picking, although I don't have it with me, is the double Scud Race. It wasn't on this video. I don't think I filmed it, but I have footage from the previous one, and it was still in the back of my mind for the past few years, and yeah. So I'm picking them up. Well, he's gonna bring them over here at some point, and so that's gonna be my next project, a double Scud Race restoration. Although I will keep one and probably use the other one for spares, and maybe resell it down the line as parts. I'll see. I don't have room for a double cab. I barely have room for a single sit-down cab. But it's going to be an interesting restoration. I'm going to put well, if the boards work, I'll probably run Scud for a while. But I think I'm just going to put a MAME machine in there, and try and run stuff from MAME, like Outrun 2006, like obviously some system trees, and maybe even stuff like Power Drift, and why not Outrun, although I do have a gap. Anyway, let's go have a look at what I grabbed, and I'm talking too much. Here's what I pulled out of there. So he gave me a few of these new old stock flybacks. I'll have a look at see what they are. I got a pile of them the last time as well, so I just need to itemize them just to see exactly what they're for and all that. So I'll make a list, and yeah. I found a Naomi back and the light assembly there as well, so I grabbed that. He gave me that as well. It's got the speakers. It's just handy to have, and that Naomi control panel is for one of those club carts. They don't have a shifter. It's interesting. I've never seen that before. But the wheel is there. It's absolutely manky, filthy. Oh, it's just got this kind of grime on it. Blech. And everything is there as well, including the wiring. I found this last minute, just before I went, this topper for another Naomi Route 66. And these things attached, they're rare enough to find. And I was looking for one for ages and couldn't find one. It's broken here, but I can redo that with a fiberglass, I suppose, and here as well. So I might just do that. But the actual topper here is intact. I'll get onto Ollie to see if he has a repro of that. Might be handy for him. Anyway, I got a few just assemblies, pedals that were just lying there. Didn't know what they were for, just grabbed those. This joystick, I wasn't sure what it was, and I grabbed that as well, because he just told me to grab whatever I wanted, really. He's no interest in that stuff anymore. I grabbed that for you as well, Ben. So we'll have to figure out. It's quite big, you know, the back of it, but it's a nice piece. You just have to find screws for the back over there. I might have a few there to kind of special screws. There was a door as well for, again, a Naomi, and 3 of these Antarix Polo chassis. So two Polo 14, actually slightly different. This one is just filthy, and Polo 25 one here. I'm not sure. I might keep 2 if you want one, Mozzie. I think you can convert them to 19-inch by just changing caps and resistors. Like if you have the manual, you should be able to change that, no problem. But yeah, and I'll be grabbing the Scud Race. Alright, well these have arrived today, and it took a while. It took about actually 3 months since the previous footage. I didn't want to pester the guy. He said he was going to deliver them at some point, and he rang me yesterday and said, are you at home, because I need the space and I'm going to bring these over to you. So there they are. These are it's a double Scud Race cab. He has the topper, he just forgot it, so I can go and collect that. I won't really need it, if I'm honest, because really all I wanted was the cabs, and I'm going to work on one obviously at a time, but I'm going to make a good one out of the two if I can, and then the other one maybe convert to a MAME driver or something like that. Space wise, I don't know. I have no idea where I'm going to keep them. I suppose I'll worry about that when they're done and finished, which might be a while yet, because I have a ton of stuff to work on. But it's all there, including the middle box, all that kind of stuff, and the wiring for it. Again, I probably won't need that. I do like the look of that. It might actually make a cool repurposed type of a thing, maybe for maybe a fridge, like, or a can holder or something like that. I'll see, but I don't think I'll need it really. I might need the electronics inside, so I'll have to think about that. So I don't know if they work. I haven't tried to plug them in. I'm assuming it's all dead, but it's all there. Even the all the boards should be there. I don't really know much about these systems, so oops, I know this lifts, and try and do that with one hand. It's always fun. But yeah, no, the Model 3 is there. Power supply. I'm guessing these are audio amps. Should be a driver board for the motor as well. I'm not exactly sure which is which. We'll try to figure that out in due time. Pedals. This has seen better days. The gear. Okay, they work, but they might need a bit of a convincing to work. We'll see. 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Fair enough. And this one is the same. Monitor is there. Speakers. Actually, this one might be easier to see what's what. God. Okay, this looks like an audio out, but these look like audio amps, Sega type audio amps. That board over there, I'm not sure what that is. Yeah, I'm not sure what any of it really is. I know this is the main board, the Model 3 board. This I don't quite know. Anyway, I have the manual. I will look it up. I'll inform myself before I even try to plug them in. Maybe give them a clean. Or I could just plug them in regardless and and see what happens, which is usually my method of working in these things. Pedals are here. I see a replacement stick here, perhaps. A different wheel on this. I do like these wheels. The other wheel looks more like the generic standard driver. It's more like an outrun type wheel, this one, but it's been well chewed. whatever happened to it, but all the sides are here as well. The back is over there. It looks like there's a spare power supply, maybe because the ones here aren't working. Bottom, is that the bottom for here? Is this what it is, or is it? No, it's a cover for here. So there's no bottom here. Interesting. I might need to go back and pick up a few parts, you know, over there, but that's not a big deal. I mean, I think I have enough metal to make a bottom part anyway. Not too worried about that part. But man, these are big. I thought they would be bigger. I actually thought I wouldn't have the space even to move these around. But these are on wheels. They're quite tidy. So there you go. This was another raid of sorts at that place. The arcade that keeps on giving. Things are getting a little cramped in here because well, after getting these two cabs, I got the Chase and the Power Drift over there, and I got obviously another Scud Race here. So as you can see now, space is becoming, I can still move around, but just about, but I need the space to start working on these as well. So plan is to get these two working first and then move one out, hopefully to the blue shed over there. And the good news is I got this one to work. It didn't take much. It actually just took a dusting off. It's a couple of issues. So first, there's no restoration on it. The plastics are just filthy. You can see this. I mean, I know I said I like battle marks, but this is just gone. This is not great either. There's a lot of there's a lot of stuff. Anyway, the cab is running. The sound is kind of a bit funny, so I think I'm missing stuff on the soundboard because I'm not hearing music when I play, and I should be hearing music when I play, as far as I know. I tried both soundboards, and one only has one LED. These are actually, I don't have the soundboard here. The other one is in the shed. But the soundboard is here. This is the one on top. So there's 4 green LEDs. I only get 1 on the other one and 2 on this one. And I suspect these are dodgy. So I'm gonna see if I can first clean them and maybe reseat everything and clean the connectors. But long term, there is a replacement for these made by a fellow in France, and I have my name for one, and hopefully he said he'll release the schematics at some point at the end of the year, so I'll be able to make another one from scratch afterwards. Other issue is power supply in this one is working, but I have 2 more and neither of them are working. These are an issue, and after a bit of researching, I can use a PC power supply with an adapter that I've ordered. I couldn't make one. It's almost just as cheap to buy one pre-made. So this is coming as well. So this cab is currently working as is. Both monitors have, at least this one has a high voltage and a raster that I could see, but because this one isn't started, I couldn't double check. But this one is working absolutely fine. Beautiful picture on it. Let me see. It's temperamental, so sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Yeah, and right now it doesn't want to boot. Fun. But you can see the flicker on the monitor. So I am waiting for power supply. I'm going to switch this off. There's no point having it on. And in the meantime, I'm actually working on restoring or taking this one apart. And the goal is to restore this one because it has the best condition plastics, at least. Metal is about the same, but the plastics are best in this one, and the control panel has the proper wheel, but doesn't quite have the gear shift that the other one has. The wheel is actually nice and lovely. I have another one of those covers. This one is a bit faded, but I might be able to just again fix that with some paint or something. I'll see. But there are some issues. There's a lot of cigarette marks. I'm starting to sand these down. I'm going to use some filler just to fill the holes, but all the bumps have been taken out, mostly taken out. What they've done, there's probably an ashtray or something like that here, because all the cigarette marks are here. So I'm guessing there was an ashtray and stuff would fall. But there's 2 holes here that I'm going to have to fill, and it's created just a weak point right here. So there's some cracks that have appeared. I think this is just hanging on because it's just wedged here. There's a crack here and there's another big crack here. So there you go. So I'm gonna fix those. I'm gonna glue those back and then use metal staples just across here and here, and then just fill that with filler and respray the top. The rest is in good condition on this one. I'm not going to touch it. There's a few scratch here I'll remove. I'll just repaint that afterwards. But this is actually the best condition. I need to take off the wheel and I need to clean all those motors. The motors, by the way, aren't working on this. But again, I haven't really dug that deep in this. I think my plan is gonna be strip this guy first, make some space, and then rebuild this one with the good parts from the other one. Anyway, so let's do that. Just start fixing this. I'm gonna take this apart first. All right, so that's one dashboard just all cleaned up and tidied. Resprayed some of it with some primer, just cleaned everything as best as I could, including the gear shift. Now this gear shift was on this panel, so I took out the original one because this is a replacement. Cleaned both of them. I mean, these things were caked in dust and bits of fluff, and I find a few coins in there as well. Clean the dashboard. This is what this dashboard looks like, and pretty much what the other one looked like as well. Hi. So it's just a lot cleaner. Clean the wheel, put a new Sega cover here, and it's cleaned up actually pretty well. And I've one sort of full original dashboard made with, I took the cover from the other one as well that looked a bit better. This one still has some cigarette burns, but I'm gonna have to live with that because this area here is textured. Can I zoom in a little bit? Yeah, there you go. This is textured, so I can't quite sand that down without altering the texture. The other thing I've done here is there was a large crack here, and there was 2 holes here. I filled them, and what I used was just metal staples. So same thing I did for the MSX repair. If you watch that, just put a little. I'll show you what I used. I used hair clips that Fiona gave me. These guys. So I cut them in just straight bars, and then I use a soldering iron and just melt them down into the plastic. I try not to melt the plastic directly. I heat up the piece, put it across the crack, and just apply the soldering iron to the metal so it sinks in slowly into the plastic. And because it's hot, after I remove the iron, it'll literally sink in the plastic, and it just helps reinforce all that area. So now I can apply some pressure. It's solid. And there was a large hole. Well, there was a few holes here. I'm guessing they put some ashtrays or something like that, because that's where all the cigarettes are. And you can see it actually damages the plastic, and there's some pressure here. So I'm suspecting this is what caused it. So that's fixed. There was another crack here that I fixed. I didn't show the process. I might show it for the other one right now. This video is just going to be about dismantling this cab and restoring the best parts. So I'm going to move this now to the blue shed until I can move the rest of the cab, so that I can move this out of the way and then move those cabs over there, so I'll have a bit more room to work on this. The other thing I've cleaned here is, and this came out really nice. I mean, they're okay. They're just a bit tarnished. This one was the worst, and actually cleaned up quite well. Just dismantled the entire inside, dusted it, bit of grease, WD-40 to clean everything. This guy doesn't move on Scud Race, so if you get one and it's solid, it doesn't move, it's on purpose. There is, let me in this rubber thing under here, so you can't push it down. Under here, so you can't push it down, and I'm guessing it's the same part for all cabs, and just because Didn't want people to think you could move that. I mean, everything is here. All the, everything is here. It's not needed. They could actually have removed that, but it was probably cheaper to just have them produced in one large lot and then add this thing so you can move this. So now this should be able to function as a brake pedal for other cabs. The way you remove these is you remove these two here, and the spring will force it's not going to snap at you, but it'll lift the assembly. So these two bolts here lift that, and this is an adjuster for the pot position. So very easy to remove. Just remove these two bolts here on each side, and you're done. And to put them back, you're gonna have just to apply a little bit of pressure, like push the pedal down so the spring catches here, and then align the pedal with the gaps here. All right, we're slowly chewing our way through this cab. It's interesting just having the side covers off. Suddenly have regained light and space, but maybe I should actually pause for a second here, just explain. To take this apart, I started with taking the dashboard, because there's 4 screws here, so that's what you need to take out first. Afterwards you take out the bezel. So there is, on the bezel, there are screws here, there might be one here and here, and there's screws, actually I'll show you on this one. So you've no, I can't wait. You have screws here and here and here, and 2 screws here on top that go into this assembly here. So the bezel is over there now. Take that out, and then you can take out the side. Before you take out the sides, I would advise you, now it should stay, and if you don't do that, it will actually just come up and rest on this bar. But it's just safety, easier safe than sorry, because it's resting on this, it's bolted to this, and this is welded, but the monitor will just come and rest on this bar. But it's just easier and probably safer to do it like that. Just put a few pieces of wood underneath just to support the monitor, and you're grand. These monitors are heavy. I've moved them, a few of them on my own. I'm used to them, but if you're not, they are super heavy. I've left this bar here, and it's going to help me just grab it like that. So I'm probably not going to do that today. But once I have that, the control panel is super heavy, so just be careful when you take it off. It's not on hinges, so once you have this off, it will come apart. So just make sure you disconnect it from the back, and then support it when you take it off. The seat is super heavy as well. The whole thing is very, very, very heavy, and the seat is super heavy. It bolts into this section here, this way. I'm thinking I probably need to take these bolts off first. I would say these bolts off there, and then this section will be much easier to take off. Again, very, very heavy. This guy, the seat assembly, and the tray. So just be ready. The whole thing is heavy, and this is still too heavy to lift yet. It's a lot of metal. Once we have this guy off and possibly the board off, it should be easier to move this around. My goal is really to take this entirely apart, restore this one, and maybe store it in sections somewhere else so I have more room here. So I can move the chase SQ here and leave this cab here, but I'll have more space to work on this one. Oh yeah, these are the side. They're actually quite chunky and big, so there's some restoration we need to do here, just filling that using maybe some again staple and fiberglass. Other than that, I think these are the best ones of the lot. Again, I've seen a lot of cracks on this, especially the corners and the top. This side is okay, I think, but this side has a lot of cracks here. And I've seen this corner here. Yeah, it's been redone already. So I'm gonna need to just check that job and maybe redo it again. So these will take more work I'm gonna use those ones for making the good cab, just maybe restore them a little bit. The other thing I found on this side, which I hadn't noticed, is the license sort of well, registration thing, whatever it is. So normally I think you'd have the gambling permit or something like that, and here the owner, some certification of the company that owns it and runs it. It's actually cool. I love little details like that. I realize I'm going to keep the box as well, just attach it to the single one, so that way we'll have just a full cab, and the other one's going to be MAME, so it doesn't need that. All right, that's all that's left of the second Scud Race. I've the monitor just sitting snugly here. This is the sort of monitor, well, kind of tower assembly here, so I just need to just clean that slightly bit. I'm not seeing much trace of rust, so I mightn't just give that a clean and leave it alone as is. It's actually quite decent. But the box here got a solid power wash. I'm gonna have to address the paint on this and maybe just get the artwork off and get some new artwork at some point. Just clean the casters and maybe give it new casters. I think I have some inside as well. I'm just gonna have to do some touch-ups. There's a bit of rust over here, so let all that dry. Maybe attack it with a wire wheel on a dry day and see what gets willingly exposed, or I might just strip it entirely. I'm not sure yet. I don't think these are original. I might have some legs, or maybe they are, but these aren't. Look at this nonsense. And also I need to just well, have a look at this board set and first give it a dust off. I did some already, but it's still quite filthy looking, and test maybe each board into this cab and see what works, what doesn't. I'm only getting one light out of the 4 on this soundboard. I think it's a DB1 for Scud Race, and I can't really find schematics, so troubleshooting this is going to be a pain. But I was in contact with the fella that actually does the repro board with an Arduino on it that plays MP3 essentially, which is what it is. It'll be better quality too, because it'll be MP3 and not just what MPEG-2 or something like that is stored on those ROMs. So it'll actually be better quality, and a recent update, the response time is much better with his last update, so it's going to be a cool one to have. And waiting for a replacement for the power supplies as well. So this is going to go. I did try to troubleshoot them, just couldn't really find what was wrong with it, why it's not really starting. And there's a couple of ICs that I can't quite check, and just getting them is actually, getting replacement will be just as expensive as getting a couple of ATX power supplies and an adapter. So let's cut the hassle and just get a clean power supply, something that will be reliable and can be changed easily. That's the problem with these, they're not made anymore, so getting a new one that's working costs a fortune, and you just know it's a matter of time until it dies. You don't see those too often. Oh yeah, and I found a few coins in the other one. Not quite enough to pay back the all the machines here, but you know, it will help. Alright, so I have all the metal parts here outside. I'm going at the back of this with an angle grinder, and this is why you need to remove all the paint, because underneath the paint is more rust. You can see the spreading patterns of rust underneath. So this came out easily. I'm going to go at it now with maybe just sanding. I was trying to take off the paint to see what the damage was. It's not too bad, it just needs to be attended to. So I'm going to use a combination of just sanding, anti-rust sort of treatment, and then a coat of primer. You want to do this when it's sunny, obviously, and I have plenty of parts to do. It's probably easier, it's going to be longer but easier to do everything in one go, and then get enough primer to cover everything, so we can have a good coat of paint on it. The art is going to have to go, unfortunately. It's okay. I'm sure I can get repro or get something else. We'll see. It's not a major loss. It's not the nicest condition, so I'm quite okay. One thing I like to do whenever I take these apart is keep all the screws back on, like whatever it was on, just put the screws back, so when you're working on that piece you can take the screws off, but put them aside for a minute, but put them back on afterwards. That way you know where everything is, because there's a lot of bolts and screws and different stuff, and you don't want to get confused when you put that thing back on. All right, that's our casters cleaned, re-oiled, and they're working just fine and actually moving and nice and loose. They're not all pristine, but I mean, it's going to be underneath, you won't be able to see them. And I was going to buy a new one, but there's probably no need. These will work just fine like this. And just take them apart, oil them, we'll put them back, and we're ready to go. All right, this is what I'm doing on these plastic bits. So I've super glued whatever little pieces I could still find. There's still some missing. We'll use probably Bondo for that. But just to reinforce it, I'm going to use a soldering iron, and just I'm using again hair clips or paper clips will do as well. And I'm just heating that up and let it slowly. It's going to be tough doing this with one hand, but take your time. It's going to take a while for that thermal mass to heat up, depending on your soldering iron. You want to be careful on thin plastic, and here it's actually quite a thin, hard plastic. It's almost like a fiberglass type of material, but you don't want your metal to sink through. So also try not to heat the plastic directly, but the metal itself. All right, so it's 4 staples, lightly, good bit of sand, and I actually use just to fill everything, just a little bit of resin, and then after that we'll use some fiberglass and resin to fill that gap here. I think that's going to be the only way. And there's another little tiny hole here. But yeah, so it's slow progress repairing these like that. You want to make sure they're repaired structurally, not just cosmetic, because you don't want them to break as soon as you handle them. So that should provide some good structural strength, having just small metal bits. You don't want big metal bits because it might be too rigid afterwards. So allow for just small staples and bit of space between them as well, just to allow stuff to move, because it's plastic, it's supposed to move. All right, an update on the cabs. This is the bottom. I'm just respraying this one, a clear coating. So I have a couple of coats of primer and paint, and a clear coat on top. And I've done the bottom as well. Here I'm just applying a primer, finishing to derust some of the parts. It's just a tedious process of rust treatment, angle grinder, more rust treatment. But you can see there was quite a bit of rust under these as well. And I have the other ones just drying over there. So let me show you there. So what I use is some paint stripper and an angle grinder to finish the paint stripper. I apply rust treatment on it, and then a couple of passes with the angle grinder just to finish off some areas that are a bit stubborn for the rust treatment. But the surface rust goes pretty quickly. You want to make sure you dry them off. You can see the surface rust is going to come back. You can pretty much wipe that off, but it's just it'll need maybe just a clean tomorrow before I continue. So once they're dry and all treated, and I still need to remove some of the paint. That sometimes it doesn't all go off with the paint stripper. So again, the angle grinder is going to be your friend, but it just saves a lot of time if you have to remove everything with the angle grinder. It's just a pain. So these products are handy. So once I have them all stripped, I'll do the same thing I did over there, and put a coat of primer, let it dry overnight for about 24 hours really, and then start applying a few coats of paint. I'm doing that while doing other stuff. I started on the patches here. Where are they gone? Where's my patches? Yeah, here. So started applying a coat of paint and then sanding back down, another coat of paint and down. So there's only some traces here visible, but I'm gonna address these. There was a big gouge here that's gone, and this guy here, I'm not sure exactly where the crack was. There was well, there was a crack here. I'm not sure where it was anymore. Great job, Ollie. But yeah, obviously that's fixed. The other thing is, I can see I'm going to do while I have all this stuff out. You can see this big crack here. So I started gluing things back together. Super glue doesn't really provide much strength. Well, it's kind of solid, but here in this corner you can see things want to move fairly badly. So super glue only helps keep everything in place, and then I'm gonna just I'll need a lot of staple. I'll probably need, because the crack goes all the way there, so I'm gonna put a staple after the crack just to make sure it doesn't spread any further. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 crack runs all here. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 maybe staples. So that's gonna be fun. And I was just checking for other stuff, and I can see under here, or I can feel at least here, there's a big gouge and there's another crack, so we're gonna have to fix that at some point. But I'm gonna do this first on this this video, even though technically we're not fixing this one, might as well. By the way, the power supply on this working cab just completely left me now. I get 100 volt or 105 into the power supply, but there's nothing coming out of it, so I'm assuming that it went as well, and I'm just waiting now for that adapter that should be here any day, and we can hopefully power this with this this power supply here. Hopefully that's still working. So I do an update on this working cab. So the power supply was gone, worked for a while and was gone. Replaced it with an ATX from my own computer that I kept. I'm glad I had it, and just use an adapter that somebody makes. So you just plug that in here, and it plugs into the power in, and then all the power out is done through the ATX connector here. So it's very handy. Audio board, I took the audio board from the other cab because this one wasn't working. I wasn't getting the sound to the back speaker, and also once I plugged it in, I was only getting sound to one side of the speaker, and it was this board here that was dodgy, so I replaced that with the one from the spare one. So we're mostly working. The only thing that I don't know anything about and I haven't quite figured out, I'm going to just try and put this gracefully back where we got sound coming out of these. And that's super important. Like, you want the sound coming from behind you and in front of you. Like, I never realized how immersive those cabs can actually be once you're sitting in there. So the last thing really is the motor that I will need to get working now. I know this is the motor board, and these guys should be lit up. They're not, and I wonder what's going on. I don't know much about these guys, these setups, so I'm not sure exactly how to troubleshoot. I'll have to do some research maybe online. It looks like it's getting some power. I see a red light, but there's nothing over there. So I don't quite know. Maybe it's power issue to the motor or something like that. I'll have to have a quick look to the connections. Not overly worried. It's actually a pleasant game to play even without the motor, but it would actually be cool to have it running. Update wise, well, I've done the finished the assembly of the repainting of the pedal and this panel. I've done 2 coats of primer on these guys, and I'm out of black paint, so I need to get some. But I'm getting it to the stage where, oh yeah, and Let me show you. These are the side panels. I still need a coat of varnish on this guy, but as you can see, I mean, can't quite remember which was which. The corner that was dodgy was this guy, wasn't it? Oh, I don't know. It was this corner, yeah. It was this corner. So that cleaned up nice and well. So this is pretty much ready to sort of assemble back. So for now, it's going to go over there in this this shed. I just need to tidy stuff first. Sound progress. Good to know that well, at least I got one soundboard that works. So I'll be able to wait until I get the soundboard replacement, and I'll probably put that in there. It'd be more reliable and more easily replaced. Next thing I want to do really is test this System 3 board, and maybe just see if I can fix this guy. That would be handy to have spares. Like, that's probably caps really, or that should be easy enough to troubleshoot. It's not a ton of stuff. Am I seeing any sort of leaky caps or anything like that? There's a lot of caps in there. Yeah, I'll just do some basic troubleshooting. It could just be one of these guys gone. I'll see. These are the sound amps for the... So these are the two sound amps for the system, or the Model 3, sorry, the Sega Model 3. And both of them from that other cab have an issue. They only output on one speaker. One outputs on the left, one outputs on the right. If you look here, this is the connector. I was wrong, I thought it was here, but this is the connector for right and left. We've got plus and minus for both sides. And if you look, they're pretty much they go through those guys, which, you know, seemed fine. There's no shorts or anything like that. Could be bad cabs, but typically I would have suspected these two, which I assume are just power amps. So I swapped them on one of these and it didn't change. We still have sound from one side essentially. So on that stage is this IC as well. There's two ICs that divide that work in sort of parallel, that are two channels. But the next one is this one, and there's an output here on pin 12 and 9 or something like that, or 8. And I'm gonna see if I can replace this. Maybe swap them. I know this one works on one side, this one works on the other side, so maybe swap them between the two and see if that swaps our issue, and then I can order maybe more of these ICs. All right, so I'm starting to repopulate the this board here, which is power amps. This is the low pass filter, power amp. There's two drive boards. I'm not exactly sure. Like, I think this one communicates from that one that's over there, which is now stored away because it's broken. These break easily. Drives the signal straight from the board, and I think this is the motor driver. And I don't quite need that. There's a reason why I'm not putting this back. I'll explain later. Oops. But there was a couple of issues with the sound amplifier. So this is the sound amplifier for the front, and this is for the back, and subwoofer that sits under the seat. And this is the low pass board for the subwoofer. And I think this one was only giving sound from, I had it there, yeah, from the left channel, and the subwoofer was fine on this one, and the other one was giving, this is the one, the other one is actually, the one that was here is actually in this cab now, because I tested it, but it was only giving sound from the right. And what it ended up being, I thought it was one of these guys. I sort of swapped them to see what the behavior would be, but it didn't make any change. Looking under the board, I could see very, very faint traces of corrosion, and indeed I had on this one 2, but I replaced this one anyway. But I had 2 just dead caps. There was no reading, really, ESR reading in them, so they were completely just dry and dead. And that slightly leak on the board, not too much, it wasn't too bad, but it was just very faint and hard to see. It's only when I lifted them out and just to inspect that they came out as bad. So this here is where I think your audio comes in from your board. Let me just double check. Yes, this is your audio comes in. Here is the audio out to the subwoofer, I believe. Or is it this one? It's hard to know which is which. I think it's this one. Yes, here. And part of this one. Okay. No, it's this one. Yeah. Anyway, it doesn't matter. This is power in. And anyway, so changed the cap here. The audio went through, but it wasn't reaching over there, and I found another dead cap, this guy. The other board was something similar. These two read fine, but it was a cap on the right side. I think it's this one as well. The 10 microfarad ones seem to go bad easily. So solved the issue. All the sound is now working fine. So, you know, if you have one of those, that might be worth just looking at the caps, not necessarily the ICs. All the ICs were fine on these. Socketed them just in case, but I didn't need to do that. And the amps here were absolutely fine as well. So good to know. So these are working now as well. The reason I want to save them is I want to use them in the main build, because all I need to do is provide really power to them, which is already there, and audio in. The rest, if we look at the schematics here, so this is one of them. This is the one that goes in the front. Audio comes here from the main board, which is here, from the main board, and out to the speakers, isn't it? Yeah. No, this is the pot. Sorry, the 6-pin one goes to the pot inside in here. So I'll have to connect the pot just to make sure we get some volume. Otherwise, I think it just defaults to playing at full volume. So the pot just helps diminish it. So it won't matter too much. But if you want to be able to lower your volume slightly, you need to connect that. That's not a big deal. But the power in here is the 3-prong one, audio in and speaker out, really, right, left and right. So there's only 3-4 maybe per board we need to populate. In this case, the audio is going to the low pass amp, which we have in there as well, and going into the speakers afterwards. So should be able to use them pretty easily straight out of the PC. So I want to keep them in there and not have to, the less I have to reconnect, the better. The other thing is this guy here. I found a replacement. Somebody on a French website called Game Over makes very, very clever replacement for this drive board that can plug into an original one, or replace in an original cab, or plug into a MAME setup, or with an additional software. So it's actually very, very convenient. So I've ordered one. It should arrive in about a month, but it's not quite compatible, at least yet. I believe he's working on it, but it won't be compatible for a while with the Model 3 drive board. So I think I need either a Model 2 or one of the Lindbergh ones for Outrun 2. But I'm not going to discard these guys because they might yet be compatible at some point. So I'll see. Maybe by the time it arrives, you'll have sorted out the issue. But yeah, so I need to order a different one of these drive boards for the motor. But that means I'll be able to use, pretty much as is, new drive board and the new whatever setup from the guy. But pretty much this whole assembly will be usable. And here I have, my PC is going to come here. Actually, the drive board is probably going to need to be here at some point. I won't need most of this Model 3 wiring here. I might need to salvage it, like for the audio and the RGB out. And speaking of RGB out, because I'm putting a PC, I need VGA, which is 31K. This is a medium res monitor, and it can be 15K or 24. There's a jumper on it, which I believe, I haven't looked too much into it, but I think it makes sense that this jumper is 24. This is 15K for low res monitor, medium res, but it doesn't really do VGA, except there's a mod. Somebody has modded this monitor to work on 31K, on VGA essentially. Takes a few components, and both here and on the neck board and underneath as well. To make it work, essentially you just offset the pot. You can set the pots for 21 here, 15 and 21K, these guys, and it offsets the 24 so that you can actually push it to 31K. And the only drawback is you probably lose a little bit of brightness, but you can compensate on that. And he also has a mod to increase the sharpness of this monitor by sort of replicated what happens on the MS8. This is the MS7, the MS9, sorry. Yeah, this is the MS9, and by sort of replicating what they did on the MS8, which is providing what negative voltage to a G1 somewhere here. Anyway, so I'm going to try that on the second chassis, which works, by the way. I had it here. I tested it. This monitor works fine as well. So I have two perfectly fine working mid-res monitors. So I'm going to mod one first to 31K and see what happens. The boards finally die. I ended up selling both board stacks and some of the parts in it that I won't need. I also have the power supplies I need to shift, and the soundboards because I don't need them anyway. I have this one out from the other cab in the blue shed, and I have a unit in my room with the FFB board and the Model 3 hack board on it that I'm soldering at the moment. I'll show you that in a minute. And the plan is to connect, hopefully not make any mistake, it should be good as is, and to connect that to a driver board from, I think this was from an Outrun 2. So I need to wire that in, put everything back and see if I can start getting some controls on this guy. So I am putting this PC in, which has the Model 2 and 3 emulator as well as Outrun. I discovered I learned about Techno Parrot recently, so I might change my plan as to what I put in, but I don't think this machine will be able to run it. I could be wrong. I'll have to do tests. So I might put Model 2 and 3 in that. Let's go back inside the house. All right, so we're on the bench here. So this is essentially the plate where normally the Model 3 or 2 stack is. We got our connectors here. There would be typically the power supply here. So I'm going to keep that because it's very handy. So what we have here is the FFB board. So this is essentially what connects to your PC via USB and allows you to use the original controls and the original outputs, like all the lamps, and control the motor as well. So this is essentially the board that will pretty much save your cab in that sense. And here we have the M3 hack, which is a handy connector board made by Agonite as well, or Agonite. And what it allows you to do is actually use your original control connectors. So you don't need to hack anything. Like, you don't need to cut any wires to connect it to this board. You just connect all your existing stuff to this board, and then we just use solder wires over there. So everything is mapped. There's a handy cheat sheet on the there's a Google series of Google documents that actually document what needs to be connected to what. So I'll put the links in the description anyway. But for the for Scud Race, for example, these are the controls on your control panel and in your cab, all that kind of stuff, and the lamps. And here we have what the pin is on the FFB hack and what it is on the M3 hack. You have the same stuff for the M2 stack and for different configuration as well. It's really well documented, so just have a look through the Google document, and you'll find all the info you need there. I didn't have, so far anyway, to contact Agonite to get some explanation that helps. It's pretty straightforward so far. So we're going to finish this. So I've connected pretty much everything. What I only need to do now is connect the TX and RX pins. So these are the pins that will allow you to control the driver board here. And this is, it's not what it is in the original Model 3 Scud Race. You'll need one of those in this case. Again, I'll put the link to a very thorough documentation on the forum that explains in details and in schematic graphics and everything what you need for what. But so I picked this off, I can't remember where, and it's working. So and the pin out is pretty much the same. I think there's a difference here for live and neutral. I think you need to invert the connector. And yeah, these are the pins here. Again, there's documentation as to which one is the TX and RX. I think they're the four ones here on this side. So we'll connect it. I'll make. I think I have connectors for this. So I'll crimp connector. It'll be cleaner, and that will go in the front of the cab, so it's not going to stay in this area. So that's the last one we need to connect, and fingers crossed, I think we've connected pretty much everything. It will need power as well, so you can connect the it's a Molex power connector, which, you know, it's handy because we're using a PC in this case. I'm not outputting a VGA, I'm outputting RGB for now, but you've got a VGA out and an RGB out. And I have good faith I'm going to use a converter for now, for the CRT. I'd like to keep the CRT even if I lose some of the crispness of picture quality. I'll see. I'd like to keep the CRT as much as I can. So we'll see. As you can see, it can get messy, so just make sure you use zip ties for all your extra connection. It can be a bit tedious just to, you know, make sure the correct length. And even there, you know, you can see I didn't quite do as tidy a job as I wanted to, but it's better than not. And here, I'm just gonna have to, yeah, maybe once everything is all done, just get stuff out of the way and just use zip ties to keep everything tidy. I like stuff tidy. I hate having jumbles of wires in every direction. So anyway, so let's continue that, do the TXRX connection, and then we can start putting stuff hopefully back in the cab. You know, while I'm at it, this is the Google document drive that he has created for this. So you get equivalence sheets for pretty much any system you can think of, at least in the Sega Model 1 and 2, and some Lindbergh, I think as well. Anyway, so get Sega Rally, that's going to come in handy. Yeah, this is from M2 stack, so this is the wiring connection diagram. So very handy. And you got a few software, so the update to the firmware is here. I think this is the UI tool and some hyperspin stuff. I'm not exactly sure what is what, but yeah, just make sure you have a look at what's, you know, everything there. You will find the document that you need. So let's keep going. This mess is my PC build, well, just roughly laid out. So like I said, I have the FFB board and the M3 hack. So essentially I connect my Model 3 cab harness into this, and this goes into this, and this one connects through the PC via USB. So this is for all our controls. This is my PC here decased. It's working fine. I tested it. I'll have to find a way to mount the fan here. Power supply that came with it's a funny one. So I need a small power supply as well. I'm going to power this as well. I'm not sure if that would be enough to power everything, so just in case. But this is sort of the same rating as this. It's not going to take much power anyway. I have my hard drive over there. I might replace that with an SSD down the line. Buttons here to start everything. I'm not going to start anything right now. It's not connected anyway. I need to connect this power supply, and I need to, before I even just start tinkering, I want to find a way to run or to tab the power supply from the cab so I can power this. I can see I can use 115, but but I don't see a switch on this guy. So what I'll do is I'll run both as straight from the well, after the filter board and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to tap a connection from there somehow. I just need to find exactly the best way to do this. Or maybe, I suppose I don't need to do this in this cab because this is just my test rig. Maybe just, yeah, I might just do that actually, just power them off the mains here for now, and then when I install them, I'll just tap it right off. This is our switch over there. Mains is coming here, goes into the switch and back out here, so maybe just tap that off somewhere out like that, just right off this connector, then maybe something like that. Yeah, I might do that. All right, so I got my stack, whatever this is now at this stage, running in there. We got the F board powered, and I use this little board. So what this is it takes VGA and it outputs RGB. They're not perfect, they're far from ideal. The quality is so, but I have to say, now, this monitor has geometry issues here. It needs a recap at the very least, and a clean and all that kind of stuff. And it's slightly wobbly, so the picture isn't great. But I think it stands. And to be honest, on those big screens, for those 3D games, it actually helps to get a little bit of blurriness, which this essentially introduces. But you can see yeah, there you go, the wobbliness. That's due to my monitor, not to the board here. It happened with the original game, but I think it looks fine as it is, and dare I say, I'm happy to keep this. It needs some adjustments, geometry adjustments and that kind of stuff. Here, there you go. Bring this down. I think that's the extent of how far I can bring it down, but that's just due to the monitor. I can stretch it. I think I can. There's a menu option and I can alter it. I need to change the color settings to make them pop a little bit, but I think it's just fine. Let me just get a wider angle. So that's great news. So next, well, we need to configure the FFB board. I'm not sure. See, I bought this driver board over there. I'm not sure if it works. It's a driver board that works with this, so it should be fine. But there's only really one way to verify that it works. It's to go back to Windows and do some extra work. So I'm going to do some tinkering for a while and then report. The guides are up there. They're in French, but Google Translate is your friend there, and I'm going to follow that and see if I can get force feedback working. At the very least, I think I should be able to at least get controls working. Anyway, not right now. Nothing is configured. Oh yeah, that's obviously it with the sound running. So the way you tap the sound is off here. So you connect the rear and front connectors that come out of here at these connectors here, and then you get just a RC cable. I've got an adapter here for a jack, and you connect that straight out of the PC. And there you go. So this is several weeks later. We've had a bit of a, not a disaster, but just a hard drive fail. Not unusual. It's an old computer. It was just crawling, slowing down to a crawl. It was just impossible to run anything. So I've just put an SSD there now. It actually makes more sense, to be honest. I should have done that anyway, and first because just the boot time is reduced by 10 and it'll make things easier. So I might as well go through the guide for installing it. So if you go to the Google Drive that Agonite has provided, you'll find this update folder, and in there's a README. So it's in French, unfortunately, but it says two things. Or it says the first time you set this up, and here is for updating afterwards. But the first time you need to install the pilots for the Arduino card, AVR, and then we need to install WinAVR, reboot, and then we need to check what the COM port is for our Arduino for the FFB board, and then we'll run the flash bat to send the program to the Arduino, depending on what type of setup we need. So I'll show you that. And this is why you need the COM board. When you start the batch file, it'll ask you for the COM board, and then the COM port, and then we'll need to install VJoy, and then the software for to control the actual force feedback from your PC. So there's quite a bit to do, so we're going to do that first. So WinAVR should be in this folder here, pilots for the Arduino. So we're going to just install that, and that should go quickly. If you've tinkered with Arduinos at some point, you would have seen these drivers come up. You often have to install these, and that's done. Next, we can close that. Right, next we're gonna go to this folder and install WinAVR. Alright, and now we just need to quickly do a quick reboot, so let's just do that, and I'll come back when we're back up. Alright, we're back up. I've opened here the device manager, and if we go to ports, COM here, and you can see that COM4 is the default port for that CH340. So we're going to make a mental note of that, or leave that open. So we're going to go back to the program folder here, and you have a list of things there. So we're going to search for something that looks like what our setup is. What our setup is, it's a PC that's connected to a Model 3, and that has the 4 button controls here, and the 4 position gear. So we're going to look for something similar, and I think PC to Sega FFB. It's the MIDI board with 4 of you, so that looks like what we're looking for. So we're going to click on the flash.exe here, and here's going to ask us for our COM port, so we're going to enter 4, and there you go, it's writing stuff. We can see the flash in here. It seems to have gone okay. Press any key to continue, and there you go, that should be our board program. So next we are gonna have to install VJoy. I'm not sure if I mentioned this, but this is the tutorial. I put the link to this guy here as well. It is in French again, but Google Translate is your friend, and it does a pretty decent job of translating at least the text. Obviously not the pictures, but the pictures are sort of self-explanatory. So we're looking for we've gone through the hardware setup, software control. So there you go. So it actually goes through everything you need to install. So we've done all that. We've done the flashing, and now we need to install VJoy. So we're looking for VJoy setup sign.exe 2.20. VJoy setup is provided. Essentially, if you go to this link, which is the link where the creator of the software that uses VJoy brings you to this link here, and you'll find his latest release on the GitHub. So I might put a link to that as well. But essentially, you download this, and I've done this before because I did it in the previous hard drive, and it downloads this back force feeder setup. 06 is currently the latest release, and it contains that VJoy setup. But then once you've done that, you click on setup, which is the back force feeder software. So sorry about the confusion. and just install that. And next here they'll tell you to configure VJoy by the configure VJoy tool. So we just need to set up a few things. So keep the axes here, just those 3 axes, X, Y, and Z. And that's all we need. We're gonna go for 16 buttons, and well, it's enable effects, all of it, and I think that's it. Yeah, we can close this now. And so at this point, usually you launch the back force feeder GUI, but you need to reboot. I haven't had much luck getting it to work without a reboot. So we're gonna do that here. So this opens this little program done by NJZ3. By the way, this is a trial version, so you will need to register your copy. So the instructions are here. If this doesn't work, you can actually send an email directly to this email address with the machine ID. It's free. It's free, by the way. Anyway, so we've PWM Center, and there you go. This has the ready status. We're in digital PWM, so I think that's us here. Oh dear, I'm going from one problem to the other. So essentially, I have VJoy here running, and it's reading my wheel. There you go. But the force feedback isn't working, and it's because this guy here, this board, which I should actually mention is not the original power board for the motor. This is it's a board from a Outrun 2. I'll put the model there on the screen, but that's what you need. It's not the force feedback needs one of those boards or another, a selection of board, but it doesn't work with the original Model 3 board, which is over here. So these guys are no good. Although I understand that they might be working on it. I'm not sure exactly where it's at, or if that's ongoing or what. But right now they're not compatible, so we need a driver board from, or whatever they're called, power board from Outrun 2, the Lindbergh type of boards. This is it, but it looked a bit crusty when I got it, and I wasn't sure if it was going to work. It worked for a while, and now it's sort of died. I'll show you maybe later. There's some corrosion on it, and I'll see if I can fix it, but I might need to order a new one. So that's one thing. So the force feedback right now is not working. And the other thing I discovered is that Model 3 Supermodel works well for as just a demo, as the attract mode. As soon as I start playing the game, I credit it, which works. The button works and everything. I've configured the shifter as per the guide. But as soon as I start playing the game, it slows us down. And to be honest, I think this PC is way underpowered to run 3D stuff. It's a desktop, office desktop type of PC. It's just running a basic Intel driver for graphics, and while it can display the graphics, the frame rate just drops. So I do have my old motherboard from my old PC, and that should work just fine. Fingers crossed. So I need to order another one of those, and I need to replace my motherboard, which is actually not a bad idea, because I don't like this double power ATX power thing I've going on here. So I'll just have one power supply, one motherboard, see if I can reuse the existing hard drive, and hopefully that'll do the trick. Yeah, I mean, look at that. It's a bit crusty. I did actually run continuity tests before putting it in, but I think this board was
hanging on for dear life for a while. Ah well, I'll try to source a new one. Alright, so I tried something on this IC and I reflowed all the legs, and while doing it I actually saw that this leg here, this pin, was completely or almost completely cut off. It was so corroded, there was only the slightest bit at the top. So what I've done, and this is the +5 in, and the fact that those 3 legs are all +5, it's hard to know whether they're connected internally or they need to be powered individually, you know what I mean? So what I've done is I'm trying to hold this camera by hand, by the way, I'm sorry about the shaking. So what I've done is I've built up solder, hopefully up to that leg, so it's hard to know exactly if it's actually going to that little thing. So I'll try that. I'll try to repower this guy and see if that makes a difference. So I tried it back in, but no luck. Essentially, so I tried it in again and still no luck. But when I inspected closer, so I removed the solder that was linking this guy to this guy. We can see it's actually is not really anywhere to be seen. So I don't think it was making contact anyway. Yeah, there's just nothing there left. But this guy was chewed as well, this pin. So these 3 pins are different types of VCC, and I looked at the data sheet for this IC. This one is for the analog, and this one, I think, or is it this one, is straight VCC. And anyway, they're all needed, long story short, and they're not connected together internally. So they need to be connected externally, which is why this big tab is here, providing the +5 to all 3. But essentially, we've got 2 VCC lines missing, and this one is probably corroded deeper inside. So there's not much chance of it working in the first place. I think it's just, thank you, I think it just worked for a little bit until probably it heated up from the extra resistance that was provided by the corrosion, and then sort of disintegrated and stopped working. So this guy could probably be fixed, but this guy would require to try to get a Dremel and drill back to the wires connecting to the die. I've seen people do that for arcade custom sometimes, or chips that were corroded. So I might try that as sort of a last resort. I see a little bit here, but I don't think there's enough metal to make a good connection. So I'm going to attempt, if I can't find a replacement for this guy, just drill and see if I can get back to the wire that goes to the center of the IC. Regardless, I've ordered a new one, just because I'll actually need a second one, because I have 2 of these cabs, so I'll need a second one at some point. So I've ordered a new one anyway, and we might see if we can salvage this one. Oh man, forget it. Look at that. So the 3 VCC pins were essentially broken. The ground pins, there's 2 ground pins here, one of them broke. Again, I don't know if they're connected internally. They might be for a ground for a different part of the chip. And then on the other side, there's 2 more pins that broke, that were broken. What am I saying? 3 more. So this thing was just corroded beyond repair, and I was just lucky it powered on at all at any point. Not unsurprising. I mean, the state of it was a bit worrisome. That's not rust on top, it's just a reflection of the light above. But the state of the circuit, so I managed to remove it. However, there's a good few, you can see the state of it. I mean, it was just corroded underneath, and the traces were super weak. They're all, some of them have moved over here. This side was just as bad as this side, and here you can see there's 1, there's 2 here lifted trace, and then there's 1 badly lifted trace here. I did try to be super careful, and I did apply plenty of flux,
but they were just, as soon as the chip kind of lifted on its own, but as soon as I lifted that, the traces were just too weak, and they didn't come with the chip. They just lifted afterwards. They just went bloop, which is just a sign of essentially, probably too much heat to start with, but ultimately that these traces were just too weak really to be. So I don't know what to do. Find a replacement IC. Maybe the board from my Model 3 shares that IC. I'll have to have a look. Press the wrong button on the phone here, but so the question is what to do. I think I might attempt to fix it at some point, but for the purpose of this video and this build, I'm going to wait for the other board to arrive and use those instead, provided they don't have a similar problem. But it is fixable. I'll just have to take my time, and then I'll have to clean here. I'm not sure what's going on here, and I have to trust that this is the only problem. I mean, in all likelihood, but yeah, you never know. M37704M, blah 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 blah. All right, so I spent quite a bit of time just trying to clean this. This leg here just definitely gave out, but I managed to sort of super glued a lot of the pins. There were lifted, about 10 of them, back on. And then I looked at this board, which has the same IC. So this is straight from Model 3, but it's not compatible with the FFB board. And I thought maybe I can take this out of here and put it there. And I mean, it would be quite a challenge. This is in such a bad state, and there's no ultimate guarantee that this was, I mean, it was indeed an issue anyway. There was no chance of it working, but if it's the only issue with this board. But then I looked at the data sheet of what this IC is. It's actually a programmable microcomputer. Anyway, so this means that this is a programmable computer, and there's a ROM in it as well. So the chance of this from here working on this guy, even though it's the same IC, are zero, really, because the program will be different. In fact, the fact that there's two versions of this with a different program in the IC, and that Agonite had to make two versions of the software. So this is not going to work. I cannot take the IC from here and put it there. So that's the end of that little adventure, and I'm glad I ordered a new one, because unless I find one from that exact same board, or I know how to reprogram one of these guys, which yeah, not happening. It's kind of frustrating because I was really looking forward to showing you this working. It kind of is. I can actually play the game. It's just a bit slower, so I'm just gonna swap the motherboard. I got the wheel and the pedals working, but the force feedback isn't working yet. I'm still waiting for the driver board for the motors, and the plan was to actually change the PC because the Model 3 emulation runs too slow really on this. What actually runs really well is the PC version of Outrun 2, and because the controls are working, we can actually technically play it. So what we have here is a setup that will run Outrun 2002, and with the FXT mod, we can turn this essentially into the arcade version, Outrun 2 SP, the Special Tours. So I was just going to show you here. The wheel is working. Buttons are working. I've also configured this to be just up and down. But as you can see, the 3D is working. Let's just see the pedal. There you go. I've set it to automatic, and the brake is working as well, so we can obviously drift. So the only thing that's missing really is some form of force feedback. I'm not sure if that's possible on the PC version. I know the mod allows the force feedback to some extent, but I think that's really if you're using a Logitech, those type of controls. I'm not sure if the Agonite board and the software that goes with it are able to handle the force feedback for this setup. We'll see if we can get it working. Maybe I'll ask them on the forum as well. But I think this is going to be the plan for at least, not so much this cab, but the cabs that's over there in the blue shed. And today my plan was to actually move everything, or at least the PC, because I have the other cab. Okay, stop. I have the other cab ready to accept the PC board. I have the other board ready to go. So everything is ready to go to accept this board and actually start playing on this cab. It's got a cleaner monitor, so hopefully we'll get a better picture than this. It's not too bad, but it's just a bit, it's a bit not great. It's serviceable. I mean, even this like that will work. We'll get a brighter picture for sure anyway, and less wobble on the image. So that's the plan. I'm gonna have to wait for the rain to stop, however, to move this, because we've got it's a big assembly. The other thing I've decided to do is, because this one is still original Scud Race, the other one I've actually stripped and resprayed and done all that stuff. So I'm gonna order art from Ali for an outrun 2 machine, and keep this one as Scud Race. Dismantle it for now, but that's the idea. The plan in the long term is, because I have a Sega Rally that I want to restore as well, sit down Sega Rally, what I will do is actually we'll take the insides of the Model 3, put that in the Sega Rally and run that as a MAME cab as well. But because Model 3 is much easier to get it force feedback to work, with Model 2 you'll need the Model 2 hack board, obviously the FFB board, you'll need PWM board as well, and then make a regulator from 5 to 24-ish volts. So there's a lot more moving parts and a hassle with it. So Model 3 is going to be easier. The motor and the wheel on the Model 3 are better, although I have to say I do like the spring back on this one that is there by default. You have springs, but I think in the long run I'd rather have the Model 3 motor in there. So we might do that with essentially this cab. So I'll just take the parts and keep the cosmetic and infrastructure of the Model 2 Sega Rally cab. Another thing I've done, and you might have noticed on the previous video, is this side is missing. I essentially, when Terrible Fire came over to pick up his half of the Sega Rally cab, we parted them essentially. His side was missing one of the sides, so I gave him this one. He's just gonna have to do some paint job on it to make it fit to the Sega Rally. But so this one is essentially missing its side, but that was the idea with the second cab. My goal was never to have a twin racer. I just don't have the space, although I might have to at some point. But it was just to use this as a sort of a parts cab for other people who might need parts as well at some point, and for myself, just to make one really nice tidy cab. The idea will be to probably have side by side the Sega Rally and the other Scud Race, and on top use the topper, which I have. My initial plan was actually to do a sort of a rig job on this. I've seen somebody do it and half it, so literally take the other half, bring it here and weld everything together and just have one topper on top of the single cab. But now that I have 2 cabs and I might have to put them in a sort of twin configuration of sorts, why not have the topper on top? And that's not a bad topper to have. I do like the Scud Race topper. It look odd, it look mismatched. I can't disagree with you there. So we'll see. I haven't decided though. I do although like the look of a single outrun cab, and if I'm gonna go to the trouble of putting art on it, might be worth my time just keeping it as a single. I don't know, like I said, undecided on this, but yeah, we'll see. Did I just talk myself out of keeping it? Well, I have the PC board, system board out, but as you can see, The rain just hasn't stopped one bit. I'm trying to do this today, but it might not happen. In the meantime, what I can do today for now is restore this. So this is the footplate that goes over there, and you know, it's seen better days. I'm not even sure that's original, because that gets a lot of wear, or got a lot of wear. You know, your foot go there. So I might just I'll see what best way I can replace that with. I don't really want a bit of carpet, although yeah, I don't know yet what I want on top of that. A bit of lino might be better, like black lino or something like that, or even a piece of metal with those kind of ridges, you know, whatever it's called. That might look nice on this. So yeah, but first I want to clean it, maybe make one really nice one. Yeah, I won't take this one, obviously it's all dented here, but take the nicest looking parts of both and make a nice one, and then maybe worry about what I'm gonna put on top afterwards. So it's gonna be my goal for now, and it should come apart easy enough. Here, okay, yeah, clean all that and turn it into one good part. Metal is out and cleaned. I might put some wire brush to it for some spots like that. There's a couple of pieces that aren't stainless like this, gonna have to be derusted. It's two of the pieces, but this is the mat here. And is it glued? No. Oh, that. Oh. Okay, no. Oh, this is so gross. And that's just dust that's collected over the years as well, and that actually went underneath the carpet. This is why you want to avoid those sort of materials. On this one, the glue stayed a bit longer, but still, yeah, there you go. See, what happens is it wears off, dampness comes in here, sort of starts destroying the glue and the material. Oh. I mean, in time, technically, you could just rot the wood, although this is good solid wood, but... Oh, God! Look at this. I'm leaving this here for now to be sanded in the woodshed. You'd have seen it by now if you watched the recent videos, but yeah, I have the frame from the Sega Rally all dismantled. This is the just power boards. They replaced the original power supply with two switchers, which I like as a solution, makes sense. Some people were asking in the Sega Rally when I got it why two switchers, wouldn't one be enough? I'm suspecting they know what the amperage is, and these are limited in amperage, so having two, and looks like you have, yeah, this one is just for plus 12 and this one is just for plus 5, which is not a bad way to do it. So I don't know how much power requirements this needs. In the long run, we won't need the switcher. We'll just put a PC power supply and get the 5 volt and 12 volt out of that. And this is the original stack that I will sell at some point. I don't know if it works. We might, when we put it back together, we might test if it works. I believe that stack alone should essentially pay for both cabs. Especially, remember, I got this cab much cheap, well, fairly cheap, and after finding 91 odd euros in it, it was the price was cut by half. So actually, not only if I sell this, not only will I pay for both cabs, including the one Terrible Fire has, but I'll probably turn a profit in the end. It's not the point, it's not the goal of this. But it's kind of nice when you're not emptying the bank account. Anyway, this is not this video. Let's go back to the shed over there and continue our work on Scud Race. No, while we're here, look at that. It's just dust, accumulated dust. I actually thought it was the material sort of disintegrated material from the carpet, but it's just dust that has collected. And a light sanding might be all I need after all. I thought I would have to do so. Look at this. This is so gross. Yeah, I might get away with just a clean and a light sanding and put a new surface on top. Yeah, that will need to go. And luckily, it's ready to go. Okay. A little bit of a derusting product on this. It's actually taking most of the top layer of rust. I think this is all it's gonna remove for now. I might just for now just oil it just to protect it, and then I'll put the wire wheel to it afterwards. Taking the opportunity to actually dismantle this cab part by part. I have the control panel here. You can see the difference in layout. It's actually kind of the same dashboard, essentially, just the same shape between Model 2 and Model 1. Same stick here. I'm assuming it'd be great if I can actually use this wheel on this dashboard when I replace everything, and I can use a plastic from this guy that looks in slightly better shape, although there's the usual cigarette marks here. It's so funny to see, but there's a big crack here, so hopefully we can use one for the other. You can see the back, the wheel assembly is absolutely huge. This panel can be removed, but then there's this panel on top of it. But yeah, it's a big assembly, and this is sort of the motor you want to have on these. It's actually a better motor, it seems, than the Model 2. Yeah, that's what I hear. And this is the assembly is a bit more complex, even the assembly for the Model 2. But the part I like about it, and maybe I can do a hybrid version of sort, but is that I've shown you before. I don't know why I'm showing you again. But this spring assembly, which is actually very neat, because it just offers a tiny bit enough resistance, and then you can let the wheel come back, which I really like. I miss that option in this, which is something you have in the original outrun. You have that's gonna spring back assembly. Anyway, let's put things away slowly and keep. I'm gonna take this next, and then I need to find room for the monitor to store it. I have the monitor here from the Sega Rally as well. I'm running out of storage space once again. Look what's there, though. You probably can't see. Can I zoom in? A couple of coins. What have we there? I always hope these are old Irish coins. I think these are Euro coins. Yeah, they're both small Euro coins. My fortune is made. One of the fun part of working on these is always discovering, I mean, coins is one thing, but little notes or pieces of receipts or things like that. It's always, or even wrappers, candy wrappers of 20 years ago, and be reminded of some things that have gone since. Yeah, I think part of the fun of restoring these is and dismantling them and cleaning them is discovering these little reminders of the past. One thing that I thought everybody did, and then when I mentioned it once in a previous video, the amount of comments from people that thought, oh yeah, why didn't I think of that? But when you take things apart, put the screws back where they go, because what you end up with is a collection or a box of various different screws, and you don't know what's going what, and bolts and things like that. So just take like a minute to put them back in place exactly where they should go, and unless there's no possible way to put them in, but usually there is, because that's the whole point, and putting them back in place. You can see here, even on the different panels and parts, just put the bolts and screws, everything back in place. That way you won't be struggling when you're trying to put things back together. Alright, so I got this monitor now, or cab, pretty much set up.
Just a automatic transmission.
It's
Outrun mode.
the
Gotta get out.
no.
Flash wave.
So the screen is actually, it just needs some calibration. These are not raster lines, these are part of the graphics. But it's crisp enough, to be honest. Yeah, so I just need to do some calibration on the brightness, a bit more brightness, just to calibrate the monitor a bit better than this. But other than that, it's functional. All the pedals are working. Gears and the wheel. I need to recenter the pod, so I need to take that apart, recenter the pod because it's not quite centered. This is the about the center here, which is not quite right. So if I kind of reshift the pod bang on center, that'll be much better. But there you go. So let's continue with this build. There's a few things I need to tidy and do some button mapping so I can do everything from the dashboard. But other than that, yeah, you can see like this is center, but it's actually going left. So if I bring this like that, yeah, this is about center. So just need to do some tidying up with all the wiring, just, you know, have everything tidy. Right now, I'm using just a multiple socket switch. I don't quite like the solution. I like to have just one plug-in, so either put that inside or just rig those inside, like right at the power in. Obviously we need to put all the covers back on here once I'm happy with the monitor calibration and all the wiring. There's a few grounds that aren't connected, so we'll do that properly. We'll put everything back properly. Oh yeah, also this is what a shed with reclaimed space. Finally, some space looks like. Not for long though, but yeah, I'm gonna have to find just better storage places for this. Maybe move them over there under the woodshed. All right, so I got the dashboard assembly here on the ground, and I just want to calibrate the. Scoot over. I just want to calibrate the pod. So the way you do it is you center the wheel here, and then you take out these. There's one on each side, one here, one here. Remove this, and now we've isolated the pod from the wheel, so we can actually just turn it like that, and this is going to turn the pod itself. And what we do is we measure. We can measure the voltage between, this is the center one, so we measure the voltage between this and this and this and this, and we want to make sure that whatever measurement we get from one side is the same as the other. All right, I've put the wheel back, so the center is bang on. You can see actually some jitter. That's probably a sign of a bad pod. Maybe a cap across would actually help prevent that, but left side is fine. That's the right at the end here, but see what happens on the right side. We've reached max already, and that's after calibration, and we still have some movement. So what I think we have is just an old bad pot. I'm gonna try to, what I'll do is I'll take the pot from the other wheel assembly and put it there, because I know that's much better, that's good, and that's gonna be our assembly. So I'm gonna take this apart again. Okay, so finally, well, first things first, a new pot, recalibrated the wheel. I've also recalibrated the monitor. Refresh rate here is not allowing me to really show that properly, but the colors are much nicer. So another thing I wanted to do was I've put a little push button here. So I've wired all the electrics, the 2 extra plugs that go into the ATX power supplies off here. There's an outlet. So normally the way the twin plugs in is you get your power in this way, and here there's a power out, and that actually goes into the second cab. So both cabs are powered from the one cab. It goes through the main switch, the EMI filter, and then there's an out here that you plug into the next cab. And so I've actually used that power out to power the two ATX power supply. So it's nice and tidy, and I've added the push button here, because when you power it on your PC1 power, you need to actually push the switch. Now I know I could technically devise a little board that will power on the PC as soon as it detects whatever 3.3 volts or 5 volts, something like that. This is just simple. It's just an extra push. I just boop, boop, and we're done. No messing, and no extra board that can fail and that needs to be troubleshooted. So that's that. And I think next I'm going to start bolting things back together, because right now everything is still loose. So I'm going to start with this guy. There's covers here that come here. I think I'm happy enough with the monitor calibration. So I might put the big cover here. And I need to find, I haven't sourced the mat that I'm happy with for the footrest plate. So I need to do that. And then comes the question of artwork. Where do I go for artwork? Where do I know where to go? But do I make this a Scud Race once more, or do I turn it into an outrun? I mean, the Scud Race art is okay. I don't even think there's for the sit down. At least in Europe, I don't think with art on the side. I could be wrong. There's something about the outrun look of a cab or sit down cab. I might just do that. Get some outrun artwork. Get the SP outrun SP that'll match this guy as well. There's a bit of yellow in there, and that might actually work well. But here you can also add custom music, and I don't know if you know, but I've made a few covers of outrun in my time, both with acoustic instruments and synths, and the synths are probably my favorite one, really. But so I might see if there's a way to add them in. I think it's very possible. You just need an audio file, and then some info text file of sort for the menu. So I'm going to look into that and see if I can add them. That would actually be fairly cool. Is this turning into an outrun restoration instead of a Scud Race? People are going to hate me. I'm really sorry if you're a fan of Scud Race or a fan of Strictly Original. I'm putting a lot of the back panels together on the cab, and sort of forgot that these guys have been, well, pretty much sitting here, at least covered, but semi outside for a while. And I did actually spend some time to respray them, but I think being here sort of exposed not exposed actually, it's holding up fine. It's just there's a couple of chips here and scratches. So I'm gonna give this a light sand, maybe a hand sand with some very 400 sandpaper, and a quick respray and like one coat. I need to clean this first, although there's some it's just blemishes. Just one coat and a clear coat before I put this back on the cab. Alright, so I got a new motor power board in, and if I enable the force feedback, I should see the wheel move on its own. There you go. Actually, probably a better test to do and more visual is from the test menu of Model 3 here, and I can do an motor test and roll right, bang, roll right left, and just stop the motor just here to. Alright, so I think I got the force feedback working on this now. Let me just select anything. Actually, we'll select automatic. Another thing I've done is I've added some of my own remixes. So here you have the original remixes. For some reason on the PC version, Splash Wave doesn't seem to work. I think I've seen somebody mention that in forum. But here, oops. So the Risky Ride, which I liked, but then all of these were kind of weird songs that I don't care for. So I have the cruising line from the 3DS version, and I have, oops, come on. Here we have the Camino Mi Amor, again from the 3DS version. And here it's a synth remix of Magical Sound Shower that I did myself again on the channel. So I might do more. So I don't quite care for these Euro remix, so I might just replace them with my own covers down the line. I couldn't figure out how to add custom titles and that kind of stuff, even in the bonus section, but I just replaced the original. Oh, this is very loud. But the force feedback is now working. Wait until I crash into something, and you can see. Oh yeah. There you go. So it works as well on material, so you can actually feel the roughness here of the side. It's like a grit under your wheels. You can feel it here. And then when you crash into a car as well. Actually, I really like the surface material. You'll excuse the refresh rate. I just can't figure out how to get this to work on my phone. But so that's the force feedback working. Let's just pause here. So right now, I still need to figure out a way to map the enter key and the escape key to maybe a button combination. So I think I'll need another third-party software. It is technically. There's an entry in the force feedback for button mapping, but it doesn't seem to work. So let me show you. I just couldn't figure it out how to make it work, and maybe I need to check in the forums. But if I go into show, here there's a keystroke entry here, and I can't figure out. There's no. You can only close it. You cannot. You know, this is it's not quite working on this monitor. Let me plug the. I have an LCD here for doing stuff like that. So as I was saying here, the keystroke emulation. I don't see anything to validate. So if I fill even all these required fields and map the enter button to one of the dashboard buttons here, I can only close this, and it actually doesn't allow me to add anything. So I don't know if it's a bug or work in progress or what. So maybe I need to look into the forum. Maybe that's documented. But other than that, it's working fine. So you could see the motor was working in Scud Race, and really what I'm interested in, or was interested in, it was actually getting it to work on the Outrun SP, the PC version. I think there's a resistance in the Lindbergh version, but for that I would need to run Technopart, and I don't think this PC is able to handle that. So everything's a trade-off, but I'm happy with the force feedback the way it is now, and I think I'll leave it at that for now. I might need to put a capacitor across the pot. You can see some slight jitter here. It doesn't really bother me while playing. You don't really notice it. There's some element of dead zone as well that you can work with. But I think that does work well. The outrun coast to coast, the force feedback is enabled here, and then you can add multiplier. So I actually lowered the hard impact. It was 10,000. I lowered it to 9,000, and the car impact to 8. The terrain is actually a bit low. I might actually, I don't know. I think it's okay as it is, to be honest. Yeah. So there's some configuration to do here. I've enabled all the VR buttons as well. So that's just for outrun. Right, we're a bit low on light here. It's getting relatively late. So, but anyway, I think I got this cracked. So let me just show you. Power on here and here for the PC. And now this should auto boot. I've bypassed the PIN and password, so it should boot straight into Windows. And on Windows, I have this cool just screen and a few icons on screen, but it makes it a bit nicer. It should auto start the wheel, and it should auto start outrun 2, and we're going to see this moving in a second. In fact, it should move it while it's loading. There you go. It's calibrating. Perfect. And what I've done is I've added auto hotkey to the PC. So it's booting a script that allows me to shut down with just a key combination. So essentially Alt S will shut down the PC, close all the windows and shut down the PC. But that's no good really if you're using a cap. So I figured out, let me just, probably the wheel, yeah. Actually, it's not going to show now, but why the keystrokes here wasn't working. Essentially, it doesn't work in that resolution. I have the resolution here to 800 by 600. It's just to make things a bit more legible on the screen here for me, but it's essentially the add button is here, so that's no good for me. So I changed the resolution. I was able to add the bypass, but I have the shutdown here set to button combination of 3 buttons, 6, 8, and 10. 6 is this guy, it's the yellow. 8 is the green, and 10 should be 4th gear or 2nd gear. And if I press those 2 buttons now, it shuts down. Closes all windows and shuts down. So that's handy. So now I don't need the mouse and keyboard to do anything when powering this on or powering it off. I can actually just power on the cab and PC over there, and then just shut down with a 3-button combination. And I think that's it. The force feedback is working. I have the gear shift working as an up and down for this. All buttons I've mapped button, this button here to be the enter key as well, just for this screen, because here's the only instance where you actually need a keyboard to press enter on. It won't accept anything else. So now this allows you to press this button and you go straight into outrun SP. And I need to just, there you go. And just enjoy the game. So I think this is going to be the end of this video. I still have just a cosmetics really now. So the footrest needs to be done. I've ordered a piece of metal for it. It's that kind of a checkered metal. I think it's going to look really cool on that. I need to order art from Ollie. I'm going to do that last, but now I need to tackle as well. I can start doing that now, tackle that topper, which is now sitting over there. Hello, cat. Yeah, it's time. It's time. I've been putting this off for way too long. Oh man, I'm looking at it. Am I having second thoughts again? But I think I won't be able to use it. I'm not going to put 2 cabs side by side, and I think I'm just trying to convince myself here. So first I'm going to take this apart, and I start by this section here, and then I'll do the second one after that. But I think I'm wondering, well, let's see what's inside, where the support, the structural support is and the strength is, because the danger is to cut it here and here, and you lose whatever bracing might be there that's actually keeping the whole piece together. So I might be better off by just keeping an entire length and just taking that little corner or something like that. But we'll see. So we need to take this apart. Is there bolts anywhere visible? It looks like this is sitting on top of this guy. Possibly remove those. Yeah. Okay, let's do that. And oh, cool. Yeah, that's it. So, is there hinges here? Can I? No, that just seems to lift off. Oh yeah, there's a little bracket underneath, so I might need to remove those guys because it won't. It'll open, but I think it can only go so far. Yeah, it'll only go so far until it's locked here. Fair enough. I might actually be able to. Yeah, it's long enough. I might need to detach here. What have we got here? Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Like there's a bar here going up to here. I'm gonna have to measure everything, but I think I'm probably better off doing a cut somewhere here, and then and then cutting just that edge here, or the other way around. Whatever looks sturdier. Interesting. These are the light bulbs for the race leader. Also, they're 110 volts. 30 watts. I wonder would 220, because I think 220 will light anyway at 110. Yeah, these are all. This is fried anyway. So I think it might be okay. With 220, because we don't really have. There might be a shop where I can get 110, and these are not voltages we normally have here. Okay, let's take this top part first, and then remove all of these. Remove the art. Remove this. Really take this apart. Empty shell, and then I'm going to start measuring lengths and the best way to half this. So this is the mounting bracket here that goes probably the other way, doesn't matter, and it just aligns with holes right here in the top part, and we roughly have, I mean, I don't want to extend too much, we roughly have 2 inches extra room, so there's quite a bit to work with. So 20, we'll count in centimeters, so 68, we got, about 4, let's just say 3 extra centimeters on each side. Right, that's more or less the idea here of having something that size. I'm just going to see if it fits for size on top of the cap. So I just need to just clean these edge and then just sand around it just to have a clean surface, and then do some creative clamping before I start welding this together. The reason I didn't want to cut in the middle is I sort of know that I didn't want to essentially just cut the structure of 2 pieces in half. This has some sturdiness to it, and this is sturdy as well. This is the only middle section here that's a bit wobbly, but once this is soldered, it's actually just it'll be just fine. Soldered, welded. So yeah, some just a good bit of sanding just around here to clean everything. Perfect. Look at that. So it just aligns with the holes here and here. Do we need those holes, actually? I was wondering what those big holes were. It's actually to just allow the screws to pass through. Connectors are here. That's fine. This is also why I want to do one big size and then a smaller one. Is just that way I know if I line one corner, it'll align perfectly with everything else. And here with the, yeah, perfect. The holes are here, here. Yeah, okay. Let's get cleaning and welding. All right, I think it's gonna work. Actually,
I cut down the race leader thing. There was a black middle strip, and it just yeah, it's just about hidden. You can see a tiny bit of it, but it's not, honestly, you really have to know it's there. It's not going to bother me. Right now, I'm just clamping it to place because I had to recut here because I hadn't aligned the bottom properly. So just this section, because it's a corner, it was just offering a bit of resistance, and it was sort of banding this way, so it wasn't straight. So I'm going to find a way to secure that in place, not with this in, but maybe something that's kind of the height of that and allows me to wedge it there and then redo those. That's the welding here. But I've just run out of welding core wire thing, so that's me done for now. It's not the cleanest job, again, not a welder, but bit of sanding. And this actually looks worse than it is. The worst actually places over there, you can see through. I'm gonna have to, there was too much of a gap, and it's probably when I cut it, it got probably misaligned a little bit. So not sure, I might have to sand back, put a plate there, and it might not hurt, put a plate there and then redo this welded area. But as you can see, it's solid enough, and yeah, it's structurally sound. The bottom area is okay. I did quite well in this section here, but here there was again a bit of a kind of gap, so it sort of creates this gap, so you can see those points here aren't sanding as nice as I'd like them to, but it's okay, it's fine, it's not going to break, and I think this is going to work. So the other thing is this this here, I'm gonna have to cut this edge here, just right here, and then cut a notch, something like that, so I can bend that over, like here. You can see the that corner, because that's used to hold the topper of this guy. So I'm gonna have to find one angle to cut a notch at. Color wise, I'm not sure. I was thinking of obviously black, because a lot of the metal is black, but red might be cool, because I think the topper, actually I think this guy should be red and maybe this guy black, because on the original Outrun I think the topper is black. It's a slightly different topper. I think it's got sides, like curved sides, but we'll see. It might look weird actually if one is black and the other one is red. We'll see. Maybe I'll make a sort of Photoshop mock-up. But first, obviously, we'll need to sand all this down, get rid of all the white paint here, and derust. There's little traces of rust, although I think a light sanding will get rid of that, and then respray. First, I just need to finish this guy. Right, that's more or less the idea. So I have this the bottom done and primed. I've there's the bracket cut to size, and I now have this top part welded. So I just need to strip the paint, put some primer, let that dry for a couple of days, and then apply paint. So I'm gonna keep the race leader at the bottom. So the way this works, essentially, this big giant bulb will light up all the time to highlight the marquee, which is now standing up there, so that'll be permanently on. And there's along with the driver of the motor, it also drives those bulbs, so whenever you're leading the race, it would light up this guy from your side. So both of them run at 110 volts. You can get that from the cab itself through the transformer. So what I will do is, I think I'll just use those bulbs, because obviously I can't fit the neon bulb. So one here, one on top. I'll have to figure out one way to mount it. It's probably on top of that. Yeah, we'll see. And then, because it needs to be sort of on all the time, I'll just rig them, instead of ringing them to the this socket here. this plug here. I'll rig it to this one that actually goes through this connector, so that'll be permanently on all the time, and it'll be a good way to reuse those. So I think that's what I'll do here for the front, because I've no art right now. I'll just use some, maybe a piece of Perspex and a printed piece of art. Let me just widen this. Maybe a printed piece of art, and then get in touch with Ollie if you can actually make something to that custom size. There's a little bit of bend here, you can see. This part was tricky to get back a line, and it's not quite, but I think it's close enough that once it's all secure and in place, you won't really notice. To be honest, you don't really notice. And once it's all painted black here, it won't make a difference. But it's just, again, not a professional welder, so I haven't sanded here on the inside. It probably won't. But yeah, I think it's good enough for my purpose. Yeah, I think this will work. Actually, I like it. I like the topper in red and the bottom in this black. Okay. So I just need to put a final coat of red. I think I have 3 coats of black on this, a clear coat on top of it, and then I have this section done, but I need to cut the trimming thing, the brackets here. So these are okay, but the long ones I need to cut to size, and then I have a piece of art ordered that I think is going to fit from Ollie. It was for, I might have to cut it slightly, but it was for an initial D size marquee, but it's similar enough in size. So that might work. I'm going to put a piece of just Perspex and then that on top or behind or whatever. And then the brackets actually come over this. So I thought this goes under, but it actually goes over. The marquee comes on top here, and the brackets clamp it together. So that's going to be perfect for that. I also obviously need to put the lights back on, all that kind of good stuff. This just arrived in the post, and is it going to fit? So it's a bit narrow, or a bit too narrow, but it'll work still, because it's essentially the length I'm looking for. This will be covered like that anyway. So that's absolutely fine. Could I even just get away with this? No, I'll need to drill holes here. Yeah, I need to drill holes. Yeah, that's gonna work. I'm just gonna clamp this square as evenly as possible between the holes here. I might need to drill on each side a little bit. Clamp this, mark it underneath. Cut it to size, and we should be good to go. It's hard to do with one arm. Oh, yes. So there's, you can secure it here. I might do that, put a couple of screws just to secure it. Oh, this is so cool. And fingers crossed. There you go. Yeah, man, this looks much better than whatever filthy carpet was there. Yeah, so I'm just gonna secure it here and here. I might just put a screw, very loose screw here. It'll be handy to have just easy access to lift this. All right. Mainly doors. All right, I'm starting to put this back together. So this is essentially done. I'm gonna leave it to dry a bit, but yeah, and on dust. But yeah, I'm happy with the way it came out. Put the lights back on because I initially thought, well, I need to put the lights back on, but I initially thought I would use those permanent lights. What I'll do is I use, like it was before, I'll use those lights for the permanent light on the topper, and have the option of this being controlled by the FFB board, as it should be. So I'm just putting this back with this connector So this might not be on, for instance, when I'm playing Outrun 2006, but I'll have the option of putting down the line a Model 3 emulator, and this can come on then whenever, if ever, I'm the race leader. But it'll be cool to have. The topper, the rest of the topper is right here. It's been top coated, so just drying overnight in the sun, and well, in the sun for now and then overnight. I've cut the trimmings around it, so that's coming back up, and what I'll do is I'll cut for now a piece of solid plexiglass that can go in between, and then once I get the art, I'll put the art sandwich between the plexiglass and these guys. Yeah, I think it works. So that was a hack and a half, but I think it works quite well. Single cab with a single topper made from a big double topper. So here I'll have I just have this piece of plexiglass for now. I might need to find a way to raise those lights. I'm not sure. It might be okay actually. Once we have actually something opaque, or maybe put something opaque in front of the lights to diffuse it a bit. I'll see. Or change the bulbs. Anyway, there's one problem with the bulbs, is that they are N17 type bulbs, which we don't have in Europe. We have N14, which is the small ones, or is it E14? Sorry, E17, E14 is the small ones, E27 is the big ones. I think in the US they use E17, among other things, so we don't have those here. So what I've done is I've ordered some adapters for E17, so you screw the adapter in and you can put an E14 bulb, which would be much easier, because 3 of those are dead. The race leader bulbs are gone. Actually, that might work better looking from here, because it won't be as much as bright. But I think, yeah, I'm happy with it. So I'm going to secure that to the cab, put the bracket here, and should the screws that goes here, and I think we're done. We're done with this cab. We're actually done with this cab. Footplate is in place. I just need the stickers now, the artwork, which is ordered from Arcade Art Shop. Ollie is always very busy, so it'll get here when it gets here. I'm not sure if I'll wait. I might finish this video here. Once the artwork has arrived, it's gonna look ace. I might need to tidy that coin box. It's a bit scuffed. I might just respray in time. Maybe not now. Oh man, I'm delighted. All right, I got the art. I'm just back from holidays, so it's probably been what, 3 weeks since the previous segment, but I've got the art was here. Beautiful art again. Yeah, so we've one last thing to install is the art. I also have the Ferrari plate here, and those little adapters for the bulbs inside here. So we're gonna have to open this guy once again and do all of that, but yeah, it should be fine. The only thing I'm slightly worried is this too big? It's too big. Yeah, I'm gonna have to yeah, I might need to just actually cut it to size. It's not ideal, not much I can do about that. I could contact Ollie and ask him to make one to size. I'm sure he'll have no problem, and keep this as just decoration maybe somewhere. But yeah, so I think that's what I might have to do. So I'm gonna take the plexi off, size it up against that, and just cut it. Not entirely happy about it, but there's not much I can do about it. I could have, if I was not in a rush when I did all this, I could have measured this, which is what I might do at some point, measure the size of this guy and ask Ollie to maybe print in this size. But look, it's not the end of the world.
this is not stock anyway. This is just a custom kind of job, repro, not repro, just customization. So it'll have to do. It's not perfect, but the rest of the artwork is going to fit very very nicely. So we'll do that today, and that should be the end. Here we go. So that's all the art down. We got the art on the back here, sides. Over here we got this topper art and the base outrun 2SP artwork. This doesn't work. It kind of does. It just provides the sort of color and mood, but it doesn't really work, does it? So I had to cut it, and because of the size and shape, there's no really proper way to cut it, to have either this or it's messy. So it works for now. I think I'm gonna have to live with it for a little while until I get onto Ollie again, and maybe we figure something out size-wise. It's not his fault, it's entirely mine. So I ordered exactly. See, this would have been for initial D topper type of stuff, I think. And I was hoping it kind of fits. I was hoping I would have a lot more margin on the sides. Obviously that's not the case, but there you go. Right now I think there's one last job to do, and is to install the Ferrari wheel panel thing. Yep, there you go folks, that's it. Finishing touch. So I tried to install these. I got these adapters for the wider US type bulbs into the narrower UK European type, but they don't quite provide enough juice to power this new modern incandescent bulb. So what I might need to source at some point is a bulb for the race leader. To be honest, it doesn't actually make much sense in this setup, because the race leader light won't light up as it is. So but maybe in time it'll be good to have them anyway, or to have a solution for replacement. We'll see. Anyway folks, there you go. This is the final touch on this Sega Racer turned into a outrun 2SP with force feedback working, running a PC, the PC version of outrun 2SP, fully now functional and ready to go. So I'm glad to see the end of this lengthy restoration. I think we got at this stage 4 or 5 videos out of this. It was quite some work. It was my first cab at this size. I do enjoy it. Similar to the pinball, it's quite a bit of extra work and work in different areas, not just repairing PCBs and wiring, but just different interesting work. So there you go. Glad it's the end though. I'm ready to move on to the next project. Folks, I hope this was interesting. I hope you enjoyed. I promise we'll do something about this topper, but it won't be on a video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.